Meanwhile, I'll take over once you're done, and then maybe I'll set up the repo. Okay. So I guess create a new project, and we can let the event model guide us.
Okay. Do you see my screen?
Yep, I see your screen.
I think I share only one window. Welcome to JetBrains Rider.
I'm just going to make sure that I have .NET installed. I don't know why Mono is not installed in mine. The last repave, I think, was the problem.
Okay. You should see all screen, not only Rider.
We only see Rider still. But that's okay.
Okay. And I should create new solution.
And you're using .NET Core, right? Obviously.
Yes.
Okay. So on the event model, we have approved timesheets. And we want to have the approval of the timesheets as the first one. So, however, I do want to have a screen already done. So we want to respond to a request to see a specific timesheet. So think of a URL that we're going to respond to and show some ugly UI for now that will just have a button and a few text fields. In fact, I don't think the approval process has any text field except for the reason to disapprove something, reject something. But on an approval, that's ignored.
Okay, which part I should do?
So we're going to start with the approval screen. So I think we just create a simple screen with no CSS, just HTML with some example data for now. We'll be able to see a button that will just say approve. Now, the reason we want to do this is we want to exercise that simple infrastructure as soon as possible. If that makes sense. And then the one button should just issue quote unquote a command, which can just be form data right now. So this is an interesting point to think about. for different representations of a command. It doesn't need to be in a JSON format. It can be conceptually anything that is representing the data that's going into the system. Of course, as we evolve that, we're going to change the format, etc. But we want to show that we can get going on these things quite quickly, and that it's not going to be an onerous task to redo some of the work or refine some of the infrastructure in and around getting these state changes to occur. Meanwhile, I'm going to, while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and install Mono on mine, because for some reason I thought it was already done, but it is not. So
You see my screen?
I see your screen. Yeah, that's perfect. So,
Okay.
so first thing we want to do is run and see the screen, and then we want to have the button, and then we want
Okay.
to just write a file called approved timesheet and with some data.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
And
Start.
during this time, is there anyone else interested in a different stack that could get going on the other one? Or perhaps what I can do as well is make sure we get the repo set up and all that stuff. The reason I'm making these meetups long is because if I don't do this during these meetups, all the other stuff for my business is going to take precedence, and I'm not going to get around to a lot of them. So I really want to have these more like workshops where people that are really interested can take part in all of the aspects of running these, including getting the video sharing, getting the recording, all these wonderful things that we have to deal with, all done together. And then we don't have to post 4-hour-long videos, but we can take out the parts that are interesting and make them into half-hour, 1-hour videos for others to look at later. But collaborating online together is key. So especially during this time, as people are in between work or laid off or just have different hours available to them, we can work online together and help each other. So yeah, I hope that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Huh. I'm wondering if Mono needs a specific. Does anyone know if Mono needs something specific for 1910 Ubuntu versus older versions of like Ubuntu 1804? They have to change the name and the sources list from Stable Bionic, or is Stable Bionic gonna work on later? Well, one way to find out. I'm just gonna do it. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna have to change the names of those sources. Rick, what are you using for your implementation stuff? Are you on Windows or Mac, or what are you doing? Or are you not doing any implementation stuff these days yet?
I'm on a Mac right now, and I'm not doing any implementation at the moment.
Okay.
Just got a few other things going on, and jump into that rabbit hole. I'm gonna just get distracted and play too much.
Yeah, no. So that's why we probably want to provide simple readmes, and just to get things going, and you can play the part of product owner or whatever during these things. But we should have a demo site to use, put ourselves in the user's perspective and all that stuff.
Although,
And
yeah,
I actually want to use this myself, right? So there's the real need for this type of system for consultants. And we had one of our guys say that I think Clockify is the UI that they really liked. So we might look at that and see what aspects make it usable and see how we can address those same goals. And so I don't want to just blatantly copy another solution. I really want to understand why those things work, and perhaps even if there's further improvements, such as the command line version for the developers, etc., how we can build on the success of other products in terms of answering some of those questions. So who's looked at Clockify here before? Anyone? I'm guessing not. But it seems to be a nice solution that others like. So my power supply was burning up underneath me. I was wondering, what's that? I'm smelling bacon, and it was because I was sitting on the power supply. I was frying my butt. I unplugged it to let it cool off. Okay. So, Chris, are you, Christoph, are you using
Yes.
controllers already? Is there a simpler way to just have a .NET response to running that, or do we need to get into too many classes already? Because we can refactor later to add these things in, right?
I have.
We really
can
want to
probably-
short circuit everything as fast as possible to
Can you hear me?
basically
Sorry
get a
for interrupting.
response request.
You can inherit from an API controller. That gives you easy way to give REST response.
Yeah, we had actually in last year's workshops that I did with Chris Condron, we had what's it called? We just ran the basic Cortana, I believe, and it kind of ran very similar to like a Node Node web interface, right? It was very easy to do. Maybe what we'll do is we'll dig that out from last year's workshop and use that. It was a very low tech solution for getting this done. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to download quite a bit of stuff for Mono. We have about 2 hours left, so we should be able to get through some of the workflows. As soon as I'm up and going here, I'll be able to help out, and Christoph can go to sleep if he wants. It's getting late there.
Yes. I have just a problem with my.
So I'm just, I'll let you know when I'm set up on my side. I forgot I didn't set up Mono yet on here. Okay, my mono install is 81% done. Timesheet controller. I'm just gonna check the Slack to see if there's any more votes for anything else.
So Adam, while you're doing that and looking at things, so I know I'm probably going to have to jump off between now and 12 for a little bit.
It's fine.
And it depends how long you guys going to run for today.
I'm gonna run till 1 o'clock, I think.
Okay.
So we got about 1:30 probably because we started late, so probably 1:30. I want to do these as 4-hour chunks so that we address everything and then do an aggressive edit job on what I post up.
So, okay. So let's maybe just while we're doing some of this stuff and while you're looking at those things, our goals kind of for today are to get something end to end, right?
Yeah, to exercise a couple of stacks at least, and then actually see how when we try to run it, where our information completeness fails, and how working backwards we can see the importance of having an information complete event model, the benefits of it, and seeing how how
Right.
much of that rework we erase as compared to regular agile type of workflows where we kind of are on purpose ignorant of some of that, the placeholders for information, and we have to do a bunch of um, open close principle violations essentially.
Right. Okay. So I say that's
Yeah.
why we went through really quickly and got the big picture. We're not worried about getting a really good completeness on the event model and that kind of stuff because we want to see that when we make mistakes, it'll become apparent.
Well, when we work without information completeness, we'll see that we may have to restart or redo a bunch of things, which is really what ends up torpedoing a lot of projects, because there's a whole bunch of devil in the details problems where without a proper event model, you end up hitting those obstacles. So we want to show that by going back and forth between event model and implementation, identify those pieces that are, identify the fact that having information completeness is incredibly valuable to removing these slowdowns in projects, because it's not just that you have to rewrite certain things. The fact that the project has been derailed in terms of implementation usually triggers a whole bunch of other things, such as meetings and alerting management, and it's a disruptive thing. It's not as clean as I think a lot of agile coaches say it is, in terms of being able to adjust and have this emergent design lead us through everything. That rework and that escalating cost curve is really hurtful. So going back and forth, we should be able to see all of that in action.
Cool. Okay, that's an important. I think to get that bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish is good because I think some people are looking at our event model and go, there's big holes in that. We should go back and fix that. But
Yes.
we're actually we're leaving that on purpose because we want to figure out that it'll become obvious to us as we implement things and things that doesn't make sense. That we go back and adjust.
That's right.
And our goal is to see that that's done,
Exactly.
how that's done effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, and then continue on when we add new features to this thing. We will now have that experience of like, okay, well, if we don't have that information completeness, we're gonna have all these slowdowns and all this rework. So let's go and do it properly for these new features, and then have the opposite experience. Have this nice way to make the Lego blocks click, and when you're done, it's done, and you have very little, comparatively looking at the previous way you did things, that this was a lot smoother. People got what they expected, and not only that, but they were able to do estimation around that and predict how long things are going to take. So yeah, exactly. We want to not have, what we're not doing here is trying to have a beautiful recording of a presentation of this is how you do it end to end, but actually work through it with people through conversations like this, through experimental code, and slowly moving that experimental code into something that can be used as a backbone to an actual project that I could use, right, and others could use for their time tracking. It was a big issue for our company, just moving between different time tracking things, and we know that we're not the same as most other companies simply because of slice work, etc. So we have features that are not offered by the traditional things, and well, why not eat our own dog food and just develop this for ourselves anyway? And it's not just a better bug tracker, a better time tracker. It's time tracking which has some of these features for having fixed cost projects being properly facilitated and things like that. So yeah, it'll be fun. Hopefully you'll get to use it and others will get to use it as well, or find value in it anyway. One of the things that I think will be quite apparent quickly is when you have this focus on state, is how quickly we can adapt this system, because we know the information layout, to other platforms. So if you want an Android or an iOS application that interacts with the same information and implements the same features, it's not that hard to do. You can track exactly what information gets tracked where and how, and adapt it to the platform you want to support. Likewise with the command line interface of just dumping stuff into CSVs or other formats that maybe a developer might be able to do a lot more easily, or maybe they might want to do some scripting of their own to make it easier. Who knows? But the expressive nature of the event model for showing not just what data is, what example data is, what the schema for the data is, but how that evolves over time is key. I think you can just plug in different views from different apps or different utilities. Maybe if you expose an API, you can also express how that API is used over time. You can do quite a lot. At least a lot more more easily than the traditional UML and other approaches have afforded. That's my hope anyway. It's been our experience. My hope is that everyone can see that for themselves. Okay, so I think my install is done. Let's double check. There's a really cool thing that Justin Trudeau announced, one of our clients, this morning on his national address, which is really positive. I'm really happy that this event modeling stuff is helping really good projects. This is food delivery, and those are really, really nice to see that being announced. And also I think the article, there was a press release and it was in the Financial Post yesterday, so it was pretty cool. It feels good when you see your work being used out there and affecting the community for the better, especially like right now when we need those things to be efficient and done quickly. I'm not sure if I'm done with my install yet. What the heck?
So how many people do we have working on implementation right now?
I think it's just Chris right now. I'm still trying to get my system to do this. I forgot that I didn't have
Is
that
there
environment.
is there anyone else online who wants to jump in, who feels like they want to jump in now, or they want to wait until they see something end to end?
There's a Golang person. There's definitely interest in Golang, so I think there's a few people that want to use Golang. I would certainly take a look at the event model. We can say which part can be done in Golang. Yeah, is there anyone there? Like as Rick said, maybe we can go into the Slack channel and see if we have. I'll ask anyone up for one of the other stacks. So I ask that, see if someone responds. So Krzysztof, tell me when you have written a file to the OS saying approved and when there's a screen that can be seen. Because we have two things, you know, satisfaction comes from two things. One is getting a web request to show a form with the approve button. And the second is just the pressing of that approve button to end up with a JSON serialized file on the file system. That's it. Nothing more. Don't get distracted with more things. Meanwhile, I'll finish my install here.
Okay. Maybe I can do that.
No rush. We still have well over an hour. Once I'm done this, I'll also get the repo ready, and there we can put all the solutions in place.
Why? Not working.
Now maybe we'll get a Twitch stream for the next one as well. I think there's Adrian's been doing. I'm not sure if anyone who watches Thrashing Code. He's been doing a bunch of online stuff for a while, so maybe we'll just do Twitch as well. So I haven't done that in a while. That would be good. as well.
So Sean's posting some pair programming comments in the chat if for whoever's
Okay,
typing.
take a look. With the chat.
In the Zoom chat window.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So the route should contain ID. Maybe. Yeah, IDs are something that we slowly introduce when we're doing this for the first time, so people see that while they are used in the implementation, what happens later is we at the beginning, sorry, is we use
Okay.
regular natural keys to make it explicit as to what we're doing, and obviously that's not what we want to do for the eventual thing, but it's kind of an easy way for people to slide into understanding the implementation bridge between the event model and the actual implementation. So instead of using user ID 1, you can just say J Smith. Okay, I know that that's a user ID, or an email, right? For, you know, instead of having a number, it's a little bit more explicit. We then end up changing that implementation slowly to use IDs, and where we use lookups to get IDs from other pieces. So I really don't want to be too opinionated when we're starting out. Uh, Generally, these are small costs in terms of, as long as you haven't published your system, you know, to production. These are fairly inexpensive things to rework before you do anything like publish to production. And if that work helps understand the information flow, then having explicit things outside of IDs is better. So, Sean, hopefully that makes sense. I've certainly stopped being. I used to be quite, I guess, dogmatic about and perfectionist about some of the coding things, especially when I was a development manager in different places, and we didn't have any of these really good ways of tracking progress by looking how state changes. And it was really important to make sure that your merges were good, and a whole bunch of other things. So having a proper standard for information for code formatting is, you know, used to be quite important to me. It isn't so anymore. I've, you know, as we'll see, these slices end up being highly replaceable. We have one of the biggest advantages of this open close principle and the slice way of working is the freedom to just re-implement something if it's bad, and so also the fewer amount of merge conflicts, because you're not really trying to adjust a bunch of things. You're really adding on pieces that don't conflict with one another. It allows you to really move forward in a very organized way. It actually plays quite well into having proper branching implemented, and all the whining and complaining that you hear about the trunk-based development people about, oh, you're just going to die in merge conflicts. It's not. That's not the reality of working in an open close principle adherent way. Those become non-issues. You can very easily have all your features in specific branches that are not ever long-lived or not integrated. They're integrated all the time, just like you have in trunk-based. So working this way has allowed a lot of better ways of working with the code itself, and some of the things that I was pedantic and militant about to make sure that things go smoothly in development, there are no longer concerns. And one of those is, actually gets into, well, what do I have as a path here, right? Like the routes, etc. It's like, well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm not too worried. I'm going to change that in accordance to the event model so that we get each of those slices behaving exactly like we expect them to by looking at the greater story and some of the given when thens below if there's some intricacies into how the data changes. So I hope that makes sense. Oh, perfect. Write all text. Krzysztof, I hope you're copying, pasting some of the code from your online examples you've been going through instead of
I
trying
search.
to fill out. Because it's probably the fastest way. Again, for those that don't know, Krzysztof has a really good series all in Polish, but he uses English in the actual code. So you can watch his stuff on YouTube. It's in the resource. The link to his YouTube channel is on the Slack resources page. I think it's the second one down.
And I don't use a web API.
It's okay. Doesn't matter. I'm looking for even, simpler examples. Definitely the Node.js. I was doing some an online course last year just for fun. The purple one, which ended up being a masterclass for Node.js. And the reason I did it is because the guy teaching it was very adamant about making sure it had no node modules. So there was no proliferation.